We had a bit of good news, at least for now. The father from Maryland, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was sent to the El Salvador Gulag and has been falsely, repeatedly called an MS-13 member by the White House spokesperson, even though the White House's own records contradict that. He was never charged with a crime here. He was never, according to any of the records that are available, a part of MS-13. In fact, he was fleeing El Salvador. I think this is the same individual who was fleeing El Salvador because of gang violence there. And this morning, a court basically denied the Trump administration's effort to ignore an order or to resist it legally. They may still ignore it, but they tried to say, hey, we don't want to follow through with this order, ask the judge about it, to return him from the El Salvador Gulag back to his family. He has a son with special needs in the United States and a wife. And the judge denied that request, but we'll see. I mean, they've been violating court orders throughout this first few months of Trump getting back into power. And so here, Stephen Miller seemingly is running a lot of immigration policy, this complete fascist. The way that like the official White House account is acting like a 4chan troll when they detained Mahmoud Khalil for his free speech protesting the genocide in Gaza, the official White House account tweeted Shalom Mahmoud. They've also been putting out social media posts of racist caricatures of crying immigrant mothers.
And for even in the first term, but also recently, allusions on DHS letterhead to the 14 words, we must protect, I forget how it goes, but because I'm not a Nazi, but we must protect a future for, the Nazi one goes white children, but the DHS ICE one says like the American people, but the message is pretty clear. I
hadn't even heard that. That's horrifying. And you can see it in the tactics of disappearing people with plainclothes officers. You just look at how the Gestapo operated and you'll see who they're borrowing from. This is a 5-alarm fire. But here's Stephen Miller saying that maybe Congress should go after the courts that try to oppose them.
Well, first of all, it's a great point, Mark. It is a budgetary issue. As a scholar of the Constitution, you know well the district courts are not mentioned in the Constitution. Congress has the authority to create the inferior courts. They have the authority to fund or not fund these courts. So yes, Congress has to step up here, but we would just implore the Supreme Court to do the right thing and protect our democracy. In the meantime, President Trump will not be bowed, will not be swayed, will not be deterred. He will rein in a bureaucracy. He will restore democratic government. He will keep that border sealed. He will send the illegals home. He will keep our streets safe. And he will protect the freedoms, the rights, and the sacred liberties of each and every American, Mark.
Orwell would be rolling in his grave about what is being protected here. He's talking about maybe we don't have to really recognize the authority of district courts whatsoever.
Because we can give it to the ultimate court that we already have entirely stacked with the Supreme Court, which is their game plan this entire time.
And here is Donald Trump on Air Force One yesterday saying another just completely un-American phrase. I mean, I'm not idealistic about America, but we are supposed to have due process in this country, and we are not supposed to be sending American citizens, or really anybody, to, no matter if they had a criminal record, to a foreign gulag
Jordan
prison.
Peterson wrote the preface to the Gulag Archipelago, a book by the Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which conservatives for years and years, half a century, like to quote saying, look at how bad that system is. They would just send people to prisons. Now, never mind that, America's been the #1 jailer of humanity for most of my adult life, and that those conservatives were mainly upset that rich people got sent to gulags. But Yeah, it is absolutely what the un-Americanness and what we just this entire thing of like, and we're building up walls, whereas when I was born, it was Mr. Gorbachev tear down that wall.
Yeah.
Like we've completely flipped on all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's this. We critique liberalism and free market liberalism, but I even just remember what culture was like in the Obama years, and we are in a very anti-liberal period, and like liberal in terms of people's human rights, right? And an open and free society where we learn from other cultures. That is what is Trump has been integral in that contraction. And CBS this morning had an article where they were able to finally get the hold of these internal government documents about the 238 Venezuelan migrants who were flown out of Texas to that El Salvador prison. They found that 75% of the men, 179 out of 238, had no criminal records. No criminal records. Now, and even guys like who I just from El Salvador, the man who I just spoke about, the Trump administration says they have no, they're laughing. They have no power to return him. But that's not even talking about that 75% of that group of people that have no criminal records that were just sent there with their head shaved.
It's not. They say it's not our jurisdiction. Well, we shouldn't be sending people there.
That's why they want people outside of our jurisdiction. And now potentially Trump floats here the idea of doing this to American citizens.
El Salvador, the president there said he would be willing to take American citizens in the federal prison population. Is that one of the ideas you're going to be discussing?
Well, I love that. If we could take some of our 20-time wise guys that push people into subways and that hit people over the back of the head and that purposely run people over in cars, if you would take them, I'd be honored to give them. I don't know what the law says on that, but I can't imagine the law would say anything different. If they can house these horrible criminals for a lot less money than it costs us, I'm all for it. But I'd only do according to the law. But I have suggested that, why should it stop just at people that cross the border illegally? We have some horrible criminals,
Should stop before
American grown and born. And if we have somebody that bops an old woman over the head, if we have somebody that is in jail 20 times and goes back and shoots people all over the place and then has a bad judge or a bad prosecutor that do nothing about him, all they worry about is politics, they don't worry about that. I think if we could get El Salvador or somebody to take them, I'd be very happy with it, but I have to see what the law says.
You have to see what the law says about sending American citizens to an El Salvador prison.
If he bopped the old woman on the head, did the knockout game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe we should consider this. Maybe somebody who's had over 90 criminal charges levied against them, that kind of thing.
That El Salvador thing is going to end up with bodies underneath it.
He said the quote is, "Why should it stop at people who come across the border?"
Should have stopped before that.
This is psychotic. This is fascist. And I have no doubt that the private prison industry is licking their chops at how they can get some contracts in with El Salvador at this kind of thing. We can warehouse people and make profit and maybe cut down on our overhead if it's overseas in El Salvador. We don't have to worry about what?
I was going to say, that's the problem is like GEO Group's going to be like, hey, don't be sending all these people to El Salvador. We want these contracts.
Right, but
don't act like you're actually that concerned about how much it costs.
You think they're not going to get a contract in El Salvador, but they just don't have to pay the prison guards as much?
Well, I don't know how El Salvador does if they let foreign. I don't know who run those prisons down there.
But it does seem like Bukele got some sort of financial deal. It's been all but confirmed for doing this. There are going to be people that line up to volunteer for this kind of thing. This is when rights are eroded for people who they deem illegal, or they'll call them criminals, even though they aren't criminals. They crossed the border to come here.
They wrote an op-ed against Israel.
Yep. Criticize Israel. Those will be some of the first people, by the way. American citizens who have protested the Israeli genocide. You think that They're not thinking about that?
There's already people getting detained by ICE for like days and days and days just trying to get into the country.
And this is a major failure of, frankly, the Democrats in the wake of the war on terror. We have failed in so many ways in protecting people's civil liberties. Donald Trump is using precedent in many ways that the Bush administration engaged in as it related to people it detained during the war on terror. Hey, just throw them into Guantanamo Bay. It's a little outside of our jurisdiction, so we can just indefinitely detain them and they have no rights and no due process, and that will keep them there for years and years and years and torture them and force feed them without bringing up charges against them. Donald Trump sees this and goes, well, we can do that if we classify these gangs as foreign terrorist organizations and say basically anybody who is of this skin color, and if you cross the border without documentation, well, we'll make you into a criminal and then into a terrorist. And then once they don't meet their quotas and the Gestapo, I mean the ICE agents, have run out of people to deport to this prison outside of U.S. jurisdiction in El Salvador, well, let's go after the lefties, the commies, the people who are opposing genocide, or just people that are Latino broadly. This is how this happens. And we should have had a much more robust recreation of our civil liberties. Instead, the Obama administration was going after whistleblowers and escalating drone strikes and things like that. We've continued to allow Republicans to dismantle our institutions, and then we have liberal maintenance come in, and they keep things as they are, and then a Republican gets elected and makes it worse, and we build off of that. And this is the surveillance state that was enabled by the war on terror, where a bunch of guys got rich. Peter Thiel, Palantir, using all of this dystopian technology to monitor us all and then set us up for our rights to be taken away. And so these people are not criminals. They're not criminals. And everybody that gave this framing justification made it easier for them to target everybody else as well.
The complacency is really the issue here that we're dealing with. This map here, I saw the entire Obama administration through Trump, through Joe Biden II. This is the 100-mile border zone in which border enforcement has a lot more leeway to fuck your life up and search you. And that's just one example of the sort of thing we just left on the books. Probably we'll never have to worry about it. Probably we'll never have to worry about the Alien Sedition Acts or whatever the fuck John Adams did that Trump's using now. Like, probably just leave that stuff on the books and don't enshrine any more rights because, you know, you don't want to get too far ahead of X midterms. And we don't want to look bad on the border or whatever.
On the filibuster, this was the excuse for not doing all this stuff, was the filibuster. We have to protect it. Are you joking?
Yeah.
Perhaps if we acted with more urgency, we would not be in the situation that we're in right now.
And yeah.
Yeah. Not Your State Rep says, I'm pretty sure that zone also extends 100 miles from international airports. It's a good point.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.